So I'll repeat what I was saying then.
Gotcha. Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. So Willie, the way that things are happening now, you're beginning to see that everything winds up being your relationship
Mm-hmm.
with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that as I was saying before, um, there was a time when Ananda was talking to some of the senior monks, and they were telling him how important
Mm-hmm.
friendship was.
Mm-hmm.
That in fact, in the time of the Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
that was the word that they used,
Right.
a sava for everyone. Now they have a hierarchy
Mm-hmm.
of words like pra, bante, achan,
Mm-hmm.
thera, mahatera. All of those are dependent upon how many years that the monk has put in.
I see.
But in the time of the Buddha, when they had the Buddha there
Mm-hmm.
was no reason for any of those designations.
I see.
And so everyone was friend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Ananda even addressed Sariputta as friend.
I see. Got
And,
it.
and Sariputta was one of the very early disciples. So he had been a monk for more than 20 years before Ananda joined the community. And yet everybody was friend. So Ananda then went to the Buddha and said, well, they're telling me now that friendship is so important that it's like half the practice. And the Buddha turned that around and says, oh no, friendship is the full practice. And
Mm-hmm.
when you understand it within context, you can see that it's in fact the entire practice.
Mm-hmm.
Metta, compassion, karuna are all aspects of friendliness. Generosity
Mm-hmm.
is an aspect of friendliness, to be friends with people. But we also have to make friends with things on the inside that we have heretofore been enemies with.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, become friends with your anger. Once you conquer the anger, it no longer runs you.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you can use that energy
I
of
think your
righteous
mic is cutting out.
indignation.
Like I think the whole like yeah. I think I heard the last thing I heard was once you become friends with your anger, and then like the sound like cut off. I think.
Okay. If you can become,
Mm-hmm.
now I hear a strong echo.
Okay.
If you can become friends with your anger, then you can use that energy to get some things done.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, your anger can become persistence,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that this can be done in certain social situations. For instance, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa kind of went against the teachings of the elders in Thailand because he did become a little bit political.
Mm.
Became political because he spoke out against some of the atrocities that he saw. Now, Thailand was actually at war in the
Oh,
early
I
1970s
see.
because it was involved with the Vietnamese War.
Mm-hmm.
And the rebels and insurgencies were coming into Thailand
Mm-hmm.
because of the United States government would have been there. In other words, Thailand got itself wrapped up in a war it didn't need.
Hey, that sounds familiar.
It sounds familiar, and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa spoke out against that. Um, so that's the other would be with restlessness. A deep worry or a restlessness is actually how we get things done. And what
Right.
we have to do is to pacify that, to make friends with it, so that we're in control of our restlessness,
Mm-hmm.
not having the restlessness in controlling us and driving us to work too hard.
I see. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean, like restlessness, definitely, right? Because I guess restlessness, worry, right? I think we had at one point talked about these fetters, right? Like, basically all this kind of stuff about the future. I should be planning this or doing that, like soon, right? So I guess those are all forms of restlessness, so to speak. Yes.
Yes, exactly so.
Mm-hmm.
And that unlike what people kind of think is that, how to say it, that they're supposed to completely eliminate or eradicate it or bring it down to zero.
Mm-hmm. And that's
To where they, and that's not going to happen.
right.
But what can happen is when things come up, if you're in charge, they will come up as helpers for you. They will come up as agents. They will come up as facilities
Mm-hmm.
rather than drives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see.
Because your friend, and this is also part of the quality of becoming unified in your mind.
I see. Gotcha.
And so when, for instance, restlessness comes up, you're very happy that that restlessness is there. It's giving you information. It's helping you.
Gotcha. So what about, when, like you're facing some situation where you, like, I mean, I guess in my example, right, a couple months ago, right, like you see a girl walking on the street, right, and involuntarily your palms are sweating, your heart races, right, because subconsciously you think something's at stake, right? So is that also a form of restlessness? What then is like that then? Like when you're, or when you're like in an important meeting or something, and you're say demoing something to senior management, you basically, palms get sweaty and you're just like, oh god, like please don't crash or something like that, like some kind of perceived like response. That's probably also restlessness.
Okay, in those tense situations, that would be a time when it would be dangerous
Mhm.
that those feelings would come up and be in control.
Correct. Exactly.
And so you want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Right. So just laugh at it.
Right, that you go, there it is, that tension. There
Like,
it is, that
yeah.
anxiety about that meeting. Where
Welcome.
in fact, there is probably nothing going to happen in that meeting that is worth the anxiety that we have.
So true. Hmm.
And there's many ways that you can do that. You can reassure yourself that, hey, I'm ready for this meeting.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
thanks for the heads up.
Right. Oh, okay, okay. That's definitely new. That's definitely new. Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah. So like, I mean, yeah, this is definitely interesting stuff. I mean, I remember way back like a year or two ago we were discussing, if sudden sounds, things like that. They're like a good litmus test of whether you're really present, because if you get startled by the slightest thing, that means you were pretty much not really paying attention. So, I made
Right.
it a good point, and I've actually seen for myself, yeah, like that reaction can be completely like turned off. Barring some like slight. I mean, for me, sometimes it will be like you hear it delay, and then I can actually feel the attention. Then like small delay, then you look over there, like something like. At least it seems
Mm-hmm.
the case from what I. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Got.
And so everything then winds up being a friend.
I see.
And this is where especially mudita comes in,
Mm-hmm.
sympathetic joy, because you can have sympathetic joy towards the inside as well as towards the outside.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So that you've always got a smile. You've got a smile for the inside and a smile for the outside.
I see. So does this actually mean that there's not? I'm not sure if this is the right question, but does that mean there's actually no such thing as a good or bad or like a positive or negative emotion? Because if we're making fun, like they're all the same, right? They're I mean, okay, same, not really same. What I'm trying to say is like each one, of course, has its own like different physical like profile, but like is there really like a difference between like good and bad emotions? Like if we're saying like, hey, like, so it's
All
not.
right. The answer to that is there's two ways of looking at it. Let's look at it at the easiest, actually the most life-saving way.
Okay.
And that is that you can get into a situation and you become afraid
Mm,
and you recognize, hey, it's time to wake up. Something has happened. I
mm,
may not know what it was, but now I'm on full alert. And
mm.
maybe the best thing to do is to get out of here.
Oh, I see. So like that
Okay,
extreme.
so right, your fear can save your life. That's what it's for.
Correct. Right. There's actually a book called I read about this, like The Gift of Fear or something like that. And it was a fascinating read. It was about like like a criminal psychologist saying that like you actually have to trust your gut sometimes when you feel that fear coming up. There might something like it's trying to tell you something or something. So it was
Exactly.
yeah.
It's something that we're not paying attention to consciously,
Mm-hmm.
but the subconscious has picked up on it. The question is for you to figure out immediately, is this real or not? In
Ah.
other words, is this stuff coming out of my old sand cars or is this present moment? And we
Mm-hmm.
need to make sure that we're checking that out
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it could be life saving. It really could be, especially
Mm-hmm.
in New York. Here on
Mm-hmm.
this island, not so much.
Yeah, like especially in New York City. Exactly. That's exactly right. Couldn't be truer. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so now let's look a little bit deeper. Now that we know that there is, in fact, reasons and rationales for all of our emotions, and when
Mm-hmm.
they're appropriate, you would call them good, and when they're inappropriate, you would call them bad.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel uh, overwhelmed by them,
Mm-hmm.
then you would put a negative connotation on it. But if it's really helpful for you,
Mm-hmm.
in other words, if the situation is very common. The 14-year-old boy is standing there in the hall or walking down the hall, and around the corner comes the bully with his two friends.
Mm-hmm.
And this 14-year-old boy knows that the bully is going to pick on him.
Mm-hmm.
But the bully picks up on that fear also.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to pester that. If that 14-year-old boy had decided, or in fact had felt anger, how dare him come and bully me? Just that anger feeling itself and the look on his face and the stance that he's got, that bully may not even talk to him.
Mm. Right. Right. So
All
I guess
right.
like
So
yeah.
being passive and afraid of the
Mm-hmm.
bully when fear was not the appropriate thing. That in this particular case, if we're talking about feelings at the 14-year-old's level, he doesn't have a lot of wisdom, but he does have these feelings.
I yeah. So I guess like in all cases, right? The defining line here is wisdom. Like whether something is appropriate or not, it really is wisdom, right? Gotcha.
Exactly. So now let's look at that a little bit deeper,
Mm.
down into the level of Paticca Samuppada.
Mm.
Because you probably heard me talk about that all of our judgments about whether things are good or bad generally
Mm.
comes from the feeling of I like it or I don't like it.
Correct. Right. Right.
Okay, so if you have a feeling and you like it and you're friends with it, then that's a good feeling. But if you
Mm-hmm.
have a feeling that you don't like,
Mm-hmm.
then you think that it's a bad feeling. And now
I
that
see.
will happen with any feeling. For instance, you can be thankful and happy that you felt afraid, it got you out of danger. Or you
Mm-hmm.
could be unhappy with fear because now it does get you in danger, and a little bit of anger would have gotten you out of it.
I see. Got it. Got it. Right. But on the other hand, for example, like feelings like anger, right? We typically, when like basically for me at least, like sometimes in working with all this for the past few years, it's been toned down a lot. Whereas we want to enjoy, or actually not enjoy, like encourage like feelings of joy and satisfaction. So when we make friends with them, it's not like we're encouraging anger, but we just kind of be like, hey, welcome back, like that kind of thing. Not like we explicitly train for joy and satisfaction. So there is like still like some slight difference in how we make friends with them, right?
Right, because the way to make friends with these emotions as they come up when we're in that really, really good state of
Mm-hmm.
satisfaction. Let us say that this is happening on the meditation cushion. Okay, that we got an email, we read it, we got it,
Mm-hmm.
and then we sit down on the floor for meditation or whatever, and the thoughts of that email come up, and anger comes with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now is the time when that anger comes, when you're in that state of satisfaction, is to let the anger be there, but do not lose that level of satisfaction,
Oh,
but
okay, got
rather to investigate that anger, that feeling of anger that comes. Where is it in the body?
I got I
What is
got
it like if I breathe into it? Let me inspect it. Let me pay close attention to it.
I see. Right. Got it. Yeah, I mean most of the time. I mean, yeah, like definitely like for all my sits, maybe it's because like sometimes I get like tired during work, but it's like when I sit like usually like it's just like all of my sits now are usually just really two things. Sometimes if I get like too comfortable, then it gets dull. Like I sit there and because and it's nice. Like I'm sitting, I'm propped up on my, so I don't lie down, but like what I do is over here, my blankets are here, right? So I make a little pile and I sit on top of
Uh-huh.
it, and it gets comfortable. And so like after a little bit, it kind of gets dull because I get comfortable, getting too comfortable. So I have to breathe. Um, and then the other thing is, I will know, maybe when it's around like the 45-minute mark, because I can sense that the mind gets tired, and then you start heating up. You're like, oh, like like that. And so it's really only two things like right now, in the formal in the formal sits. But I've actually found that not setting a timer for the sits is a lot better. If I sit, and if I explicitly set like like a time for 1 hour, I find that the mind actually rebels more than if I just said, okay, I'm home. I'm gonna sit until I can hear the dinner like the chopsticks being put down on the table, and that way it's still an hour, but it doesn't. It like for some reason it just doesn't. Yeah, it's like all right, yeah, let's do it. We're fine. It's quite strange, actually. Yeah.
Actually, there is something that is almost kind of a trick. In the time of the Buddha, there were no clocks anyway.
Right.
But there were ways of measuring time. One was with a candle or an oil,
Hmm.
how to say it, lamp. That's what they called it. Sometimes the oil lamp was nothing but a little bowl,
Hmm.
had oil in it,
Hmm.
with a wick laying over the side of the bowl.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's all it was. I mean, it was just a tiny little bowl. That bowl could have actually been fashioned right out of the mud within 1 minute, picking up the mud, fashioning it in, and laying it in the sun. And tonight we've got an oil lamp. Okay, so how long the oil in that tiny little lamp lasts
Hmm.
will be then the time that the monk will have, that when the oil lamp burns out, then it's time for the meditation to be over.
I see.
But there's no real guarantee of exactly how long that's going to be. He only has the quality of, does he put a little bit of oil or does he fill the bowl up with oil?
Exactly, and I think that's actually, yeah, like I find it actually works better. Mine doesn't get as like as paranoid. Like, yo, you sure the timer? Like, did you really press start on that timer? It's not ringing because it's an hour and it's not ringing. Like, stupid things like that.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Modern technology is not always our best friend in the way that we use it. You
Gotcha.
can make it more of a friend.
Gotcha.
So the next one is, and this is really cute.
Mm.
They did have joss sticks,
Ah, right.
and the joss sticks had a purpose.
Mm.
Modern day here in Thailand,
Hmm.
this is what we have for joss sticks.
Ah, okay. We ha-
This, but these will last for about 8 hours.
have
The
you like sit until this thing like burned out?
Well, it's not so much that we wait until it burns out. It's that the reason for it is to keep the insects and most importantly the mosquitoes away.
Yes, yes, yes. Right.
So when the joss sticks runs out, and normally, I've seen this in modern times. I've seen it done by Thais. I've seen it done in Sri Lanka. I've seen it all over the place. What they'll do is they'll put an incense stick in each of the four quarters while they're sitting up at night
Hmm.
during the time of the full moon. It's very common for monks to spend one night a month up all night sitting meditation at Wat Suan Mok. Normally what would happen would Bhikkhu Buddhadasa would start giving a talk at about 2 in the morning, and he would talk until it was sunrise, which is time for Bindabat. And so he
What
could
is?
watch the light of the day to know how much time he had left before he would stop speaking. But he would normally go for about 3 hours,
Oh my God!
3 to 4 hours.
But
And
like,
some of the very best talks during the 70s and 80s were recorded, and they play those. This is part of the archive. BIA archive is immense, simply
oh,
because so many people were tracking Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's life and following this. But anyway, back to the point is that the monks would sit
mm,
up before 2 o'clock in that part of the night. They would post incense sticks at the four corners. So I'd put two here and two
uh-huh.
behind me, and now I'm sitting there. And when those joss sticks go out, then the mosquitoes will come back.
Oh. And so, like, when you guys start getting bit, like, is that when when it starts getting itchy here and there, you're like, all right, I think
All right,
we're.
yeah, now, right. This is something that's just taken me out of my satisfaction. It's time to either change joss sticks or get up and go do
Get home,
something.
get home, get up and go home. Oh, okay, got it.
So this
Wow.
is how it was done in the really old days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just merely convenient
Mm-hmm.
to give students a schedule
Mm-hmm.
so that they know what's happening. But you could easily run a retreat by just saying, okay, the schedule is up early, meditate, eat,
Mm-hmm.
do your stuff, meditate, eat,
And then
do nothing for a while, have a nap, meditate some more, do some chanting, have a talk, and but you don't put any times down for those things.
which is wonderful, which is
Yeah,
which is
there's
wonderful.
no timing. There's no timing.
Wow.
That we have lunch when lunch is ready.
Wow. Okay. Got it. Wow. That's actually, yeah. I mean, that sounds like a nice way to live, honestly.
I do, as you can see, no watches, no clocks.
Wow. Okay. Got it. Yeah. I'm
There
just looking.
was
Yeah. Go ahead.
there was one period of time in at Watsu and Moke when I very happily understood that I don't even know what month it is. I don't know what day of the week it is. I do not know what day of the month it is. The best I can manage is this is 1985.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Like
Because I mean, there's no clocks, there's no calendars. These are
wow.
artificial things that we give ourselves.
I see. Got it.
And that then the
I'm just
calendar
looking
and then the
forward.
clock becomes our boss instead of it being a handy tool. It's supposed to
Mm,
be a handy
right.
tool. It's supposed to be a friend, and it winds up being our boss.
Exactly. Wow. I see. Yeah.
Is not April the 15th a boss?
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to the to my trip like over here in October. How ironic! I'm looking. We just talked about time, and I'm like, yeah, let's go and look forward to October. Yeah, so I think that's gonna be it's gonna be great. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can do like a night meditation though. I'm pretty sure I would probably bob in and out of sleep if I actually tried to sit for the entire night. I think that's probably what would happen. I would
Well,
sit.
no, you're going to make breaks.
All those breaks. Okay.
Yes, there was one time that I remember it. This was actually at Wat Lao,
Mm.
Washington D.C.,
Uh-huh.
where they were having a ceremony, and this was one where, oh, I would say at least half of the Lao monks in the United States were there, and
Hmm.
a huge contingency of lay people who were staying up all night. And that part of the process was that they had 100 uh, statues that were only about this big.
Hmm.
and that they were blessing those statues. I know it's magic, but we do a bit of magic from time to time. I'm not going to go out of it. In fact, I've got my other reasons. And then they would sell these statues, these Buddha rupas, at $100 a piece. So this just automatically raised $10,000.
Whoa! Oh my
But
gosh!
they were blessed in that ceremony
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and on prominent display,
Mm.
and that during that time it was broken up between chanting
Mm-hmm.
and sitting,
Mm.
and they would chant for a little while, and then they would sit for some. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some of the monks would go and take a rest
I see.
from time to time,
Mm-hmm.
but basically there was always a huge contingency.
Mm-hmm.
And that what was really going on was the senior monks
Mm-hmm.
could not get up and go take a rest because they were watching the junior monks to see if they were the ones who were going to take a rest.
Oh my God!
And I had a couple of students there at that particular time, and so I was sitting with them to make sure that they were going to be able to sit up all night, to have that strong determination. I'm going to sit here. I am not going to go take a nap. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to
Well,
be here all night.
yeah, but what about bathroom breaks? Like, if you need to go to the
Yeah,
bathroom.
you go right. You go
Uh,
to the bathroom. There's no
uh,
limits. There's
uh,
all of this is psychological.
I see.
Sure, if you got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, and you come back down and you sit down. You don't go lay in the back of the room or way back in the corner someplace and lay down.
Take a
When you go
nap
to
on
the
the
bathroom,
toilet.
you stand up, you walk, you stay standing, and then you come back and you sit down. The issue is how much time during the night are the monks going to be laying down, as opposed
Oh,
to can they stay sitting up?
I see. I see. I see.
And we're talking
Wow.
about a massive number of people
I
in
see.
in this, because the lay people were doing it too. So
Whoa.
all together in this large hall, I would say that close to about 500 people all together.
Wow.
Maybe about 100 monks and about 400 lay people.
Wow. So I
But I
guess.
see that ceremony that I'm talking about is a very common ceremony. This was just the really big one that I remember.
Okay, I see. That sounds kind of daring. Like, I don't even think if my skin could take that, but like that sounds fun though. Like a late night meditation sit. Yeah, I've actually read a couple things about this. People say, this is way back. This is maybe like 3 years ago before I started taking, like working with you. But I remember, somebody saying that like, meditation during the night is like, I think not really special, but I guess like it's also more productive because apparently your brain chemistry like changes or like the mind is more because if you're getting used to like sleeping, it's like a better like a way to train because this is when the mind is normally tired, and so you kind of want to kind of train. And if you can do it, if you can pull it off when the mind is tired, then you certainly will have no problem when the mind
Right.
is active during the day. Right.
And there are certain thoughts that you would want to keep in mind.
Ah.
The kind of thought that you would want to keep in mind. This is the very, very best thing that I can do right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, like that's the thought to
Yeah, that's the thought. That's the thought. That this is the absolute very best thing that I could do right now.
Mm-hmm,
That I'm here working with and helping all of these people. They may have magical thinking,
mm-hmm,
but this is an important event,
mm-hmm. Gotcha. I
and
see.
and I'm up for it. I am not going to be a
Mhm.
failure at this. I'm going to succeed at it.
Gotcha. So what about? I also read like a treatise about this. So it's not lucid dreaming, but like sleeping consciously. I believe, I think the Dalai Lama had written a piece saying that like at some point, like this is like Tibetans, like they can train to basically like sleep but conscious, and their description is like you're basically like some point of awareness in there, and everything's just dark. Like there's nothing really going on. Like you're just sleeping, but you're aware that you're sleeping. You're consciously sleeping, and I think that was in the context of what they call like the clear light mind. I didn't get too deep into it, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember reading a description that apparently it was possible to sleep the entire night, but consciously like that. And I was like, whoa.
Yes,
I,
yes, and
mm-hmm,
um, Here's the point.
Mm-hmm.
The point is can you come from very deep sleep
Mm-hmm.
immediately to consciousness?
Immediately, I see.
Immediately. Can you
Mm-hmm.
come out of a deep sleep immediately into consciousness, or do you have to go through a dream state?
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, got it.
Yes, this is actually the elimination of the dream sleep, which means then that if you can
Mm-hmm.
spend your time in really deep sleep,
Mm-hmm. It's
first
worse.
off, there's going to be a bit of consciousness there anyway, but
Oh,
it's not important
ah,
because you can bring consciousness back immediately without it going through a dream state. So
whoa.
anytime that you recognize that you're conscious, you are. But there will be times when you're completely unconscious because you're completely deep in sleep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, here's an example of where that really works.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, this is in that relationship between Buddhism and martial arts.
Mm.
So that when, let us say, the target is in his bed asleep, and
Mm-hmm.
the ninja or the assassin comes into the room,
Mm-hmm.
is he going to remain asleep? Is he
Mm-hmm.
going to dream about it? Or is he going to wake up to defend himself?
Oh, I think it's got to be the last one.
All right. So this is what that's the point that we're looking at is can you come out of sleep
Mm-hmm.
into fully awake very quickly, or do you have to go through a dream state?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the way that you can start to work with that is that in the first after you're asleep,
Mm-hmm.
what's the very first thing that you do when you wake up?
When I wake up like normally,
Uh-huh.
uh, yeah, I'm just trying to think like what do I actually do? I wake up.
Yeah, that's the point. You just
Yeah,
made it. You just made my point.
yeah. What do I
You
actually?
don't know what you do when you first wake up.
I know exactly.
All
There's a,
right. So there is something now that you can do that's going to help you with that. You can have a kind of a little ritual. There's many different things that you can do.
mm-hmm.
One of them would be to say something right out loud, or another one would be something like clap your hands and say, "Okay, I'm awake."
Gotcha. I see. I see.
But you do something to pull yourself out of that half dreamy state as
Mm-hmm.
quickly as you can. As soon as you recognize that you're awake, come all the way awake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So does this mean that light sleepers? I mean, I'm not sure if this is any correlation to like light sleepers. Like, does that mean that they're actually pretty aware? Like they can jump like from that state really easily? Yes.
Yes. Normally, what happens is that people who are thought of as deep sleepers, there is a Hmm. Let us say that in fact that there are three levels, but we really want to work with two. The very, very light sleep is just daydreaming, and we're in that state a lot all day
Oh,
anyway.
fabulous.
Okay, so then we have the deeper sleep, which would be the what they call REM sleep. That it may not have the rapid eye movement, but it does have a lot of brain activity, and this is the state of dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a deep sleep when the alpha waves are there. The question is, how quickly can you move out of that deep sleep into fully awareness, or are you going to go into that in between dreaming state? An
Mm-hmm.
example would be that you're dreaming,
Mm-hmm.
or that you're sleeping completely in deep sleep, and you hear a noise.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being immediately awakened about that noise, you start to dream about what that noise is.
Gotcha. Right. 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 That's
All
what. So
right,
that's
and it may be an assassin, and so
exactly.
don't dream about that assassin coming in. You need to wake up and get ready for it. Okay, so that, and they actually practice this in Japan.
I was actually just about to give a little bit of trivia. Yeah, like the shoguns, like Tokugawa, actually, because he was actually afraid of like assailants in the night. If you go to like his residence, right, like all the wooden floors there, they're called like nightingale like planks or something, and they were designed to squeak when somebody stepped on them. And the guards in the house would actually define their own little squeaking pattern, so that when you heard the squeak, and you recognize the pattern, you would know that it was one of the guards. But if you heard a squeak and it wasn't that pattern, you know somebody else is in the house. Like, it's really cool. Yeah. Yes.
But then while you're asleep, you have to be attuned to those squeaks.
Oh, gotcha. Right. Wow.
Okay, so this is the training then that the monks would go through,
Mhm.
that would bring them eventually to that state of being in a very, very deep state, but immediately be able to come out of it.
Like a really deep state. Gotcha. Like being able to come out of a deep sleep. I see. Oops, sorry. This is running out of battery. Hold on. 1 second. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So yeah, it's like the monks training themselves to basically, come out of a deep sleep. I see.
All
I mean,
right.
I played around
Now,
with some.
one of the things that's happened to the human race that I don't think was 100% a good idea, and that is electricity, electrical power. I've got a master's degree in electrical engineering, and I'm beginning to say, wait a minute.
Oh my god.
There was something nicer about the time when humans were on this earth before there was power.
Gotcha.
For one thing, now in the cities, almost no one knows what a night sky looks like.
Yes, light pollution is a real problem here. Yes.
Light pollution.
Exactly.
And you don't even know what the night sky would look like.
Correct.
But can you imagine what the sky over New York would be if every light was turned off?
Amazing. It would be really
It
nice.
would be like out in the middle of a desert or out in the middle of an ocean, but only in the middle of a desert or only in the middle of an ocean or in a high mountain area where you're above the light pollution.
When I was in college, when I was at Cornell, like Cornell's on a hill, and it was dark, completely dark at night. And I looked up, and I was like, I can actually see constellations. I was like, oh my god! Like for the first time, definitely. I know it's probably not as impressive as like out like in the ocean. Like I think we were on a cruise once, and I was so shocked to see that yeah, it's completely dark if you look outside. And when the sun set and everything, I was like, wow, it was very different, and also really cold too in the middle of the ocean. It was really cold because we were going
Uh-huh.
up to Canada, and I was like, oh wow, yeah.
Well, right here on Kopangan, first off, we're an island, and the mainland is, yeah, it's populated. It does have electricity, but
Uh-huh.
we're far enough away from the city. I would say maybe about 60 kilometers from the city. And there's not that much light pollution here on this island with only about 12,000. And it's also mountainous. So you can go up right on the little mountains here on this island and get above the light pollution, and you can get a magnificent view of the night sky.
Well, I gotta see that when I come here. I gotta see it.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I'm gonna bring a camera, and then after that, maybe you can walk me through a cemetery to help me, make friends with the fear of the dead and all that stuff. It's gonna be great.
We don't have any cemeteries.
It's
They
gonna be
kind of
great.
burn up cemeteries here.
No, you're right. You were telling me last time.
But they do have rows and rows and rows of stupas in certain areas of certain Wats.
What's a stupa? Yeah.
Well, it's a small shrine
Ah.
that the family has put up to encase the ashes of the individual.
Oh, right. Okay, I see what you mean. Oh, that's it's kind of like what they have in Hong Kong. It's like they're cremated and they have a little urn, and you put the urn in there, and yeah. Okay, I see. Gotcha.
Okay, so yeah, up at Wat Khao Tum, there's a huge rock that's
Huh.
exposed to the trees. Most of the place on these mountains, you can't even see the sky because of all the trees, and so it gets really black. But there is this rock that we can go out on, a huge boulder, and
Uh-huh.
from there you can get a really good view of the night sky. I
Wow.
haven't
Oh,
been up there in several years, but I don't think light pollution has crept that much. I think that you can really get it. But here's the point about the night sky and the lack of electricity,
hmm
that in the old days,
mm.
you would have thought that everybody would just sleep at night and be up at the day because that's how things are now. But no, that takes a society to
Oh,
make things safe. That
right.
in fact it's dangerous at night, and so any village is going to have people up in northern hemispheres. If you've got a wood fire, somebody's got to get up in the middle of the night to rekindle the fire so that people won't freeze by morning time. So there's a lot of activity that has to be done at night that was always done at night, and that when humans came out of the before they got to um, let us say the northern climes, that Buddhism was always tropical, and that all of the cultures in the tropical areas have different sleep patterns. Because normally when the heat of the day comes in the afternoon, that's when traditionally people would take naps. In fact, that's exactly the way that it was in the time of the Buddha. And so the monks slept in the afternoon and the people slept in the afternoon. And then let us say market activities would start in the late afternoon of about 4 o'clock and run until evening time. And this was the time when the Buddha forbid the monks to go out. They were not to go out in that evening time because this was the busiest time of the day for the lay people, and the monks were not to be there to bother them.
Oh.
That the monks, in fact, would go in the morning to collect the leftovers from the meals that they were eating at night.
Oh, wow.
That
Okay.
I used to be wrong with that. I thought that, oh, well, that meant in the time of the Buddha, everybody got up really early in the morning and cooked their food for the whole day, and that was not the case. That if you look in the style of India now, every night is a big celebration, even in the Islamic culture in Ramadan. They fast all day and then they eat in that evening time.
I see.
Hinduism, they do that. So it's a big evening time of eating. And then the monks go out the next morning to collect the leftovers from the night's feast.
Oh, okay, okay.
That was how that it worked. But the point that I'm making is that during this whole issue is that people did spend a lot of time at night not sleeping. That even the Buddha talks about the 3 watches of the night, to where the first
Right.
watch of the night he had delusionary dreams. In the second watch of the night, he had delusionary dreams about all kinds of people and things. But in the third watch of the night, he woke up to the defilements,
Right.
the
And
tapes, and how to eradicate them. So
right.
this is another quality that shows that that Buddhist monks they traditionally they spend the night. That's the night of the Patty Mawk.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it's like that's actually pretty intense then. Wow. I'm actually quite surprised now that you're telling me about this. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, for me, yeah, like definitely, definitely on the weekends. Sometimes I end up sleeping at like 2 or 3. At other times, I've actually seen the sun come up maybe at like 5, but like not. I mean, that like to me that actually like for me it makes me like my skin like gets like itchy and stuff if I stay up too late. But so I mean, usually that's like their usual schedule, right? They just use the night and it's great. Like
Exactly. And so going back to that quality of friendship that we were talking about, part of that quality then is to make friends with the night.
Right, because
And that
usually people are
one of the
fearful.
things that one of the things I remember, I really got a kick out of this, of being able to navigate myself through Wat Suan Mok in pitch darkness.
In pitch darkness.
In pitch darkness. There is not enough light to be able to see anything until you get the eye accustomed to tiny little shades of shapes and colors and things like this. Actually, there's no colors. It's just dark
Black, white,
gray and
gray, yeah.
darker gray.
Right, right.
but you can learn to manage and manipulate yourself because you've been down that path during the daytime. You know the path already.
Mm.
And so now managing yourself down the path and being able to stay on the path, that's the trick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you can see just enough of the path so that you don't get off the path. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you do get off the path, and you say, because you run with a brush of a leaf in your face, you say, "Oh, now I know I'm not on the path. Let me figure out where I got to go."
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I mean, definitely you're right. Like fear during the night, fear of the night, that's something that's like another, I guess, like something to work with, right? Like during the um like when we're talking about friendship, right? Because like for us, for at least, right? Especially Chinese superstition, right? Like of course they're scared of the night, right? There's things that go bump in the night. You're gonna see things, horrific things, during the night. You better go to sleep, or else you're gonna start seeing things, like things like that. And so there's always, like something to work with. Then, it's really
Uh-huh. But if you think about it, the night is generally cooler than the daytime, and that's a positive in the tropics.
right. And I mean,
And it's quiet.
yes, it's a good time to like play, chill, relax, or just read. For me, technically, I know like for my own body, I know that maybe around like 1:30 or 1:45, that's when it starts feeling tired. But if I stay up past that, like when it's like maybe 2, then I will actually feel like awake. It's actually quite strange. Like the
Mm-hmm.
wants to go to sleep, and then when you move past that time, it will just it will keep going. I'll put it that way. It'll keep going.
Well, in the Western society, possibly Friday night would be a night to experiment with. That'll give you the rest of the weekend to recover from the fact that you didn't get any sleep. You can sleep
I'll
all day
probably,
Saturday or something.
yeah, I mean, I'll probably be sleeping like 3 or 4 tonight, so it's okay. It's Saturday night. It's Saturday night. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's also another like another like a thing to make friends with, I suppose. Gotcha, gotcha,
Mm-hmm.
gotcha.
So we go out looking for things to make friends with because we no longer are enemies or afraid of anything. That
Mm-hmm,
what fear we have is now a tool
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
to help us navigate to stay safe. And
mm-hmm.
so we're in that state of safety. This
Wow.
is part of
Yeah, this is good stuff because it's like I didn't consider. I mean, like, we've talked about, yes, we treat, our emotions as, a reminder to practice, but this is also another way to look at it, right? To make friends with them. I would suppose now, guilt and remorse are also tools, right? Because, guilt and remorse, they have their function, right? They tell you, hey, maybe you want to reconsider should a similar choice come in the future. You may want to try something new, but too much of that, and then you're stuck in the past. So it's
uh-huh.
important to. Oh, okay, I see.
Here's something the Buddha said about remorse.
Mm,
And I've got a story behind that
mm,
in a different kind of area. The
mm,
Buddha said that there are two reasons
mm,
to do the appropriate thing now.
mm-hmm,
One of them is that we will not have any remorse now for it,
mm.
and we will not have any remorse later for it. Now that later remorse is almost like long term. And so
Wait.
we let remorse be a tool to teach us
Mm-hmm.
that if we do something that we will remorse about, that if we can remember that, then we can say, okay, I will not do that because I do not want to have to deal with remorse about it later.
Oh, okay, got it. So that's the way. Uh,
Okay,
mm-hmm, gotcha. And how it becomes
right.
like a tool.
And in that regard, remorse has, let us say, remorse is something that's already rot. It's rotten.
Rotten.
When it's right, when it's fresh, it's guilt. guilt will rot in, and it gets really stinky as it rots into remorse.
I see.
But guilt can be a major teacher for us.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there is in Buddhism, we have two of them. One is called Hari, and the other one is Opata.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hari is embarrassment,
Mm,
where Opata is actual feelings of guilt. So let's describe what we mean by that.
okay.
Hari is embarrassment, which means, well, I don't really care if I did it or not. I just don't want to get caught.
Oh, right.
All
I
right.
see.
An example of that would be even though a well known meditation teacher is being sexually involved with things,
Mm-hmm.
the real problem was not that he was doing those acts, taking money out of the funds and paying for
Mm-hmm.
sexual favors.
Mm-hmm.
The real problem was he got caught.
Mm. Okay. Right.
Okay. He got caught. That's the embarrassment.
I see. I see.
We don't want to get caught. We want to continue to do wrongdoing. We just don't want to get caught in it.
I see.
That's embarrassment.
So, so basically,
It's not very useful. In fact, it's quite dangerous.
like embarrassment. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, only that that there's embarrassment. Real guilt
Mm-hmm.
is different because guilt means I know I've done something wrong and I need to do something about it in order to relieve myself of this feeling of guilt.
I see.
Now, surprisingly enough, when you're actually on the path of the Buddha and are practicing this because we know what suffering is,
Mm-hmm.
now suffering and no suffering and doing the wrong thing, the guilt becomes the suffering that we experience when we know we've done something wrong, and so we want to fix it. We want to go through a rehabilitation. We want to make amends. We want to patch things up.
Mm-hmm.
That's what guilt is all about, is fixing that which is broken.
Mm-hmm.
Where embarrassment is means we want to escape or run away from what
Oh,
we've done wrong.
gotcha, gotcha.
So one is to run away from it, and the other one is to fix it.
I see. Oh, so that's
And
how
if
you're
we
saying.
don't fix it, then it goes into remorse.
Oh, gotcha. Right. So that's why you said, embarrassment is dangerous, quote unquote, because it basically is like you just don't want to get caught. Nothing has really changed. You just, I see.
I want to continue the bad, but I don't want anybody to know I've done it.
Oh, okay, got it, got it. I see. So does that mean we make friends with embarrassment too? Like we like when it comes up, we're just like, oh, look at that. I guess like I mean in that case, right? Embarrassment is teaching us to, I guess, run away. So I guess like when it comes up, we should be like, like don't do that, right?
The
Like,
embarrassment should happen, it's most useful before we screw up.
oh, the
It's
embarrassment.
less useful after we screw up.
Ah, ha 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 ha. That's right. That's right.
Right. I do not want to do that because I do not want to be known to do that.
Ah, okay, got it, got it, got it. I see. Hmm.
Okay. Now that's exactly what leads the internet and
Mm-hmm.
the anonymity and the trolling and the avatars
Mm-hmm.
is so that people can behave badly
Mm-hmm.
and not have any identification or identity associated with it other than the avatar. So if somebody's trashing the avatar, the individual who's behind the avatar does not have to feel embarrassment. But
I mean,
guess what? They do anyway. They identify then with the avatar.
that's why people get into heated online arguments, right? Because they actually get mad.
Exactly. And so by thinking they can get away with it with the avatar, and then they wind up not getting away with it, and that's when all of this bad behavior is happening, because they thought that they would get away with it, but then when they have the ID, when somebody trashes that avatar, they say, oh, it's me that they're trashing, let's fight.
I mean, it's also in group psychology, right? Like people tend to get more violent in large groups and when the thing is anonymous because they know that they will not be there's a greater chance that they can't be held personally responsible or accountable, and so people are actually
That's,
more.
that's part of it. But there is also mudita at work.
Oh, okay.
That if you've got 5 guys that you're standing with and they're all feeling the same way, the likelihood of you starting to feel the same way that those 5 guys feel is very high.
Right. So it's like how feelings like they're infectious, right? Like that.
They're infectious, exactly.
Gotcha.
And so when you've got a mob, that
Mm-hmm.
means that you've got a whole lot of people that are sympathetically vibrating in a particular way
Mm-hmm.
that may become dangerous.
Wow. Okay. Got it. Got it.
For instance, they're all of the workers are angry at the boss.
Right. That's also right. That's definitely the typical one, right? People going on strike, protesters united by a political cause, right? Right.
Uh-huh. But they do so because they're united. That's what the whole point of a union is mudita.
I see. Got
If
it.
we
Got
can band together, we've got power. If we do not have the same feeling, or if we all have the same feeling, but I have it for 10 minutes from 10 o'clock until 10:05, and then you have it from 10:05 to 10:10,
it.
it winds up being that way.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I see.
So that it's all disorganized, but you bring them together
Mm-hmm.
and they start feeding off of each other, they will all go into the same unity of feeling. This
Mm-hmm.
is a mudita. If you understand mudita, then you can say, wait a minute, if we're going to have some mudita, let's have it in joy rather than in anger or frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Mm-hmm.
band
Right.
together in good feelings. Let's band together in friendship,
Mm-hmm.
not in animosity.
Gotcha. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I see. Got it. So yeah, like, are there any things I should pay particular attention to or work with like this coming week, in my practice? Like, mudita is definitely on the radar now. Now that we've talked about,
Yes, I
like,
would say that would be it. You work with mudita.
okay, got it. Like friendship, basically, both inside and out. Like to sum it up, inside and out, as much as possible, right? Things have their own value. They are teachers. They are tools, to be used, right? Exactly. hmm Gotcha.
Excellent. Willie, you've gone through a lot this week and you've learned a lot.
I'm sure there's gonna be more. I'm sure there's more to learn. There's always more to learn.
Okay. So
Gosh.
let's stay then with that mudita and friendship. You start making friends with everything, especially the things inside yourself that you haven't liked before. Begin to like it.
Gotcha, gotcha. Oh, I see. Okay, so that's very interesting. What about? Oh, I'm just thinking about like what there is that about myself that I've actually something scanning. What about lust as an emotion? What about like feelings of lust or desire? So those are tools.
Here's where,
Yeah.
well, what you want to do is to make sure
Mm.
that you can see that you like her,
Mm-hmm.
but that you don't want her.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, remember
If it's lust, leave it at just merely lust
gotcha.
that does not have any hands.
I'm kind of I think I've been full from the last buffet, so I don't think I'll be eating like chicken for like a long time, at least for the next year or two. Yeah, I think let's just eat some vegetables for now.
I like it, but I don't want it.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, it's good to be noble.
All right, well, I got a couple of calls waiting, so I'm going to let you go, Willie.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Have a good night. Thank you.
Enjoy your friendships.
Yeah. Thank you, you too. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Bye. Yeah.